open up the Sefer HaKorbanot. You guys have your Smarim? Sefer HaKorbanot, that one of the sections is Hilchos Shkagos. What are Shkagos? Someone tell me. Someone teach me. No? You could go go home. You don't have to stay up so late, I have to try. You have to try it. So drink more water. That always wakes me up. We'll go to Sefer HaKorbanot. We'll see Shkagos because we should make a note. Where are the Ashamos? Only because we're talking about them, and we don't know what we're talking about. So here, what is an Asham? An Asham is a unique type of korban. Normally, a chatos, there's many sins for which a person will bring a chatos, right? Kol chet shechayavin al shigato chatat kivua. Any sin for which a person is obligated to bring a chatat kivua if he had performed the sin b'shogeg. Shogeg is unwittingly. How many sins is that? How many sins can result in a person? He did it b'shogeg, so he has to bring a chatas instead. We will not punish him otherwise. So I'll bring a chatas. Which sins are those? Give me the categories. Anybody know? The categories of sins for which a person brings a chatas if he's mamish shogeg in his performance of the sin is all the sins for which a person is chayiv misa, if he did it bizadon, and all the sins for which a person would be chayiv kares if he committed it bizadon. However, those sins for which a person would not be chayiv kares or misa, but just let's say malchus or something else. Well, yeah, violating yontif. So he would not have to bring a chatas. So who brings a chatas? A person violates Shabbos bizadon, gets skila. Violates Yom Kippur bizadon, gets kares. He violates either Shabbos or Yom Kippur b'shogeg, he brings a chatas. If he violates yontif stam bizadon, he is to be lashed. If he violates yontif b'shogeg, he's not to bring a chatas because the punishment is not kares. And by the way, anybody who deserves kares for his adon can be lashed, and that would save him from the kares. Lashes are a punishment on their own, according to, as the Rambam explains. Eat pork, get lashes. But lashes also save you from the kares you may have deserved for violating, say, a worse sin. For example, eating chalev, right? The punishment for eating chalev is kares. So the way you can get out of kares is by getting lashed. Unfortunately, you can't get out of misas beistin by getting lashed. If you're chayiv misas beistin, the only solution is, okay, fine. So now we understand what are the chet shechayavin al shigato chatat kivua. Okay, chayavin al lo hodalo asham talui. If it's a case of not shogig but lo hodalo, he just didn't know, so he has to bring an asham talui. What is a lo hodalo? No, that's the Rambam's question. Uma hu lo hodal. What does it mean? It was not made known to him. What's the definition? Im nistapek lo im shagag v'davar zeh o lo shagag. He doesn't even know if he's shogeg. Why not? Hareza mitzvah lakriv asham. That's called an asham tolui. Okay, it's mechaper on the suffix and it's totally low until he actually finds out what actually happened. Has he have such a case? So that's the next halacha. Eino chai b'asham tolui ad sheyasham isur kavua. Well, there has to have been an isur in front of him. So he gives the example of chalev. He knows that there was chalev here. The question is, did he actually eat it? Or enough chalev to kazayas or not? Is it a full-size kazayas or not? Or he gives a case of a rayas or chalev with some other food. He knows he ate something. Was it the chalev or was it the regular meat fat? Okay? It's not a shogeg case. It's a lohudalo. He doesn't know what happened. Or he gives a rayos. Because people used to live, I guess they lived in the dark. He says, is that his wife or some other woman in the bed? Okay? So there's a chatas, there's an isser kavua. That's the chatas, and that's the asham talui. What's talui? Talui is literally it means hanging. And in figuratively it means, it depends. He just doesn't know. That's a lohudalo. So a person who committed such a sin, lohudalo, until he finds more information, he brings this. And they say here, a person needs this to, according to the Rambam, in his Parashah Mishnayos, he says it's like to allay his fears. A person who has proper Yiras Shamayim is worried about even an avera that came to him by accident. I didn't even know. A person who's fed chalev, he thinks the place is kosher, and they feed him, chalev, by the way, is just another piece of the meat fat, right? You have a good steak, it should be marbled properly. It should have a certain fat content and good shot meat. There's chalev mixed in there, you won't taste the difference, right? properly slaughtered meat or non-properly slaughtered meat, you're not going to taste the difference. But then again, nevel and treifa is not a kares. Schaleb is the problem, or the dam. Okay, he doesn't know it's halachically dam or not. So he ate that. He wouldn't even know he tasted it. So he's worried. A proper person should say, I still did an avera. Yeah, maybe I was an onus, but I did it. Why? How did God allow this to happen? So he has to really be thinking. He should have some introspection. So to calm him down, he brings this korban. Let's go see. There's more examples. Go to the next parak where the Rambam says, "What's an asham vadai? For what do we bring in asham vadai? That's an asham talui." The Torah also describes as asham vadai. Chamesh averos mevin korban asham v'huan nikra asham vadai, a certain asham. Sharei eno ba mishum safek. This isn't brought because of a safek. This is just what's prescribed for certain sins. I'm going to take a drink of water. Hold on 1 second. I have a bottle here, I have the cup here, but I haven't made a bracha. Is the pizza done? Wow. Then again, we had some help. So. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shakol nihya b'dvaro. So where are the 5 averos? Shifcha harufa. What is a shifcha harufa? Read the next halach over here. What's shifcha harufa? Well, do you have a question there? Oh, I didn't put it on the screen. Is it on the screen? I'm so sorry. Okay, now you see it. Oy. What's a shifcha harufa? The Rambam says it's a case of a slave woman who is jointly owned. Shifra Kananis. That means she was born non-Jewish. So she's indentured in servitude to a Jewish man, but now to 2 Jewish men who have split ownership with her, and one of the men has emancipated her. So now her free side is wholly Jewish, and her slave side is still Shifra Kananis. So what is she supposed to do? Who's she supposed to marry? When a Jewish woman is a proper Jewish woman, she's supposed to have 1 Jewish husband, and that's it. If she's a Shifra Kananis, she has no Isuri Biyah, technically speaking, except for bestiality. So your Shifra Kananis could go get herself pregnant by a Gentile man, another Eved Kanani, whatever it is. Doesn't really matter. There's no Isser. But now she's a Shifra Harufa, so the masters arranged for her to be married to this Eved Ivri, basically. That's what Nechrefet Leish. Okay? Chazal said, wait a minute, you don't want a person who's a half slave, half free, by the way. If you had a male slave in such a situation, he had two masters, the Eved Kanani. He had 2 masters. One emancipated him, his half, and now this guy's half Eved Kanani, half not. So what's he supposed to do? The Gemara says in a few places, he is now the side of him that's Jewish can only marry Jewish women properly, whereas the Eved Kanani side of him has no Isuri Biyah. Right? So what's he supposed to do? He can't marry a proper Jewish woman because his Eved Kanani side cannot do that, and he can't just go fornicate like an Eved Kanani because he has a Jewish side that prohibits that. So he's stuck. And then the time say God wanted Puruvru to happen. Lo tohu bira'ah, l'shevet yisara. So the halacha is they compel the other master to emancipate this slave, the other side of him. Okay, so you don't have an Eved Kanani who's half-half. But a Shifra Kananis has apparently this half-half state, and she's to be wed, so to speak, or designated for this Eved Ivri. Okay? And the problem is, so she's designated for this Eved Ivri, and someone else decides to have relations with her. That's the Isser of Shifcha Harufa. Okay? So that's it. Bein Bizadon, Bein Bishkaga. Maybe Asham. Habal Shifcha Harufa, whether it's done Bizadon, Bishkaga, for whatever reason, he did it on purpose or he didn't realize the Isser, he brings this Asham. And then the Rambam brings all the examples that, the qualifications. She has to be a Shifcha Gedola, that means above Bas Mitzvah age, and Birtzona, she was willing, she wasn't raped or anything like that. V'tia Be'ula, and she's previously had relations. Okay, that's a case that resulted in him being lashed for such a thing. The Shifcha Harufa case is unique in the Torah. Okay, one of the unique arayos. So for this one, he brings an asham. It's the only erva, active bia asura, for which a person would bring an asham vadai. Okay, next, go to the next case. What's the next one after Shifcha Harufa? Gezel or Gazel. You have Gezel or Gazel there. Halacha Zion or Halacha Aleph in the 9th paragraph of Chicago's. How do they put the Nikud? Well, we're parak 9. I'm reading. I'm just we're doing Yediyah, so we can understand what Rambam's going to talk about Ma'aser Korbanos over here. Is you have in that first off in Parak 9, Halacha Aleph, you have Gazel or Gezel or Gazel?
Gazel.
Gazel, okay. Okay. Gazel, not Gezel, like you normally read in Yeshivish, right? Geneva is a similar mishkal except feminine. There's no such thing as a ganev, right? So you say Geneva, that's the feminine form of ganev. And you do have the feminine form of gazel, which is gezela. That's a Torah word, okay? Al gazel kitzad, for theft. And by the way, normally, what's the difference between Geneva and Gazela? For people who are learning Nezikin, what's the classical distinction between the two? So one is
Geneva is when they're trying
come
to
on,
hide themselves.
well, all you guys, people like you always know this. It's theft, whereas Zela is robbery, by force. It says Vayigzol Sachanis, you take the money from him directly. Geneva means you could burglarize him or somehow misappropriate. He's not looking. Zela is by force. But then again, here it doesn't really mean that. Al Gazel Ketzad, Kol Mi Sheyesh Biado Mishave Pruta V'Mala Mimon Yisraeli. Anybody who has a Shava Pruta more of someone else's property, Mamon of a Jew. Bein Shikizalo, Bein Shikinavo, whether it's actually robbed from him or stolen from him. Right, you have that? You have something different? Bain Shivkid Itzlo, O Hilvahu. Whether originally it was a pikadon given to him and now he's just not giving it back. Or Hilvahu. He lent money to him, he's not giving it back. O Mishum Shutvas. They're in partnerships, so that's why they have each other's property with him. And I says, can I have my share back? No, not having it. O Misharj Rachim, it doesn't matter. You have the other Jew's property, Shalo Beheter. He wants his property back. The Kafar Bo V'Nish Balashakar. And here's what he did. He did the thing and even swore to that effect falsely. So what does he have to do now? If you just stolen and denied it, or if you just stole and denied it, he still would have to give it back. He wouldn't have gotten into this issue. But now he said V'Nish Balashakar. Now he's taken a false oath, saying, I didn't do nothing, it's not mine. Being Shkaga, whether he took this oath Bizadon or Shkaga, what's Zadon? He knew what he was doing. He heard the oath administered. You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and you're warned by Beis Din not to lie. That's Zadon. Shkaga means he doesn't understand the Isser he's about to do by swearing falsely. Okay? Hashogig b'mikra hu shnel amimenu shechayvim korban al shvua zo af sheyada shehi asura. He didn't understand the consequences of taking this false oath. It's a problem. Most people don't know this. So now he has to bring in Asham. So that's one Asham Vaday. That's the Gazel. The next version, in Halacha Aleph, once again says, so you have a Shivcha Harufa, the Gazel, and the Me'ilah. Me'ilah is in Halacha Chet. What does it say there? Ala Me'ilah Ketzad. Kol HaNaneh B'Shaveh Pruta Min HaHekdesh B'Shkaga. A person who somehow is Hana translated in English as benefit or had pleasure from it. Sometimes it's either or. It depends. Okay? Or you could say pleasure is a type of benefit. I like that. Pleasure is a subcategory of benefit.
It's weird because in modern Hebrew, I think it's strictly
yeah. Modern Hebrew. Just say what you will. There's advantages and disadvantages. Okay. So he did this bishkaga. He benefited from temple property. Bishkaga for value of pruta or more. Machzir mashanene. So now he has to give back to the temple what he took. He used 2 shekels worth of the temple wood. So he has to give it back. Yosef chomesh. Chomesh means 25%. A fifth is 25%. Make sense?
20%.
Nope. A fifth is 25%. In the Torah, fifth, the penalty of giving back a fifth is 25%. Shmuel, you know why? What's the
because
rule?
once you add 25% of the
25% you give is the fifth. Okay, so you basically reduce the denominator by 1. Okay, what do you mean? That's a shtus. Shtus is right 20%. Right, that's usually the rule. And he has to bring this asham. So he took two shekels worth of temple property and used it, the temple wood. So now he has to give back how much? 2.5 shekels to the temple treasury, right? That's the fifth. And he has to bring an asham. How much that's going to cost him. Next case in the Rambam brings is Tumas Nazir. He doesn't have to explain that. Tumas Nazir is a Nazir who somehow got himself tummy, right? Once the Nazir got himself tamei, he went near a dead person. What does he have to do? Shaves off his hair, brings a slew of korbanos to atone for it, and starts the whole Nazirus over. So if he was supposed to be Nazir for a month, in the middle, he ruined it by having this happen. So he has to bring the korbanos, start the whole Nazirus again. And if he took a Nazirite vow for 5 years, and on the last day of that term, he got himself tamei, he touched the mace, so he has to do a whole another 5 years, right? Whoops, yeah. So he also brings an asham, right? That's the tumas nazir. And saras is kishihita or mimeno. A person who had saras, a part of the purification ritual is he has to bring a prescribed asham, and that has its own special blood ritual. So there you have it, the 5 ashamos and the asham talui. So now we can go back to Sefer Avoda, Meiser Kabbanis, the 9th parak, I think.
Yeah.
You're the one who sent it to me.
Yeah. The very beginning. Okay. 207. Back at home.
Remember, we were discussing this just to say, if you live in a place where they keep 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, and you're convinced that you're only supposed to keep 1 day of Rosh Hashanah, do not let anybody know and put in their face that you are not keeping Rosh Hashanah that day. Why? Because that's bad. That's also an Isser. That's a bigger Isser. Okay? And if you are convinced that you should be taking lulav on Shabbos, that's the first day of Sukkot, in a place where no one's aware of that and they're still following the Bavli, then do not walk to shul carrying your lulav on Shabbos. Okay, and don't show anybody. Don't sit in your sukkah and don't let your neighbor hear you say the bracha on the tilas lulav and hear your lulav shaking. Don't do things like that.
Don't do the right thing for the sake of showing them.
Yeah. Okay. So be discreet. That's the most important. If you're going to be different, be discreet, especially with regards to isurim, right? And isurim malacha. Remember, doing malacha on a day that everybody thinks is Rosh Hashanah, for people who keep Rosh Hashanah Yontif, it's an Isser Malchus. You know, you can't, and it's pretty well based. You know, who says that the second day of Rosh Hashanah is kept even Eretz Yisrael? And who else? Rambam, Rif, Rosh, the Vilna Gaon, the Shulchan Aruch. You know, you can't go against everybody and say like, you know, flaunt. You can't flaunt these in an Isser in their face and not expect repercussions. Okay. So, what do I believe? What do I believe should happen? I think that this whole Rosh Hashanah 1 day thing is like the reinstitution of the temple sacrifices. It should happen. It should be what all Am Yisrael is doing. Am Yisrael should be build the base of Mikdash, and Am Yisrael should be giving machatzitz a shekel in order to bring to the korbanos. Mm-hmm. And Am Yisrael should be getting rid of all their enemies throughout Eretz Yisrael. These are all things that should be done. So too, Am Yisrael should have a Sanhedrin that's deciding based on the sighting of the new moon when Rosh Hashanah is, and then Rosh Hashanah should be 1 day. So these are all ideals. Okay? We're all well.
It's an ideal.
It's an ideal that we're pressing for. We're pushing for these things. I don't think if this is like, yeah, that'll happen 1 day. I think if this is something as our actual goal right now. Okay, so 1 day Rosh Hashanah is our goal that we're working on right now. Okay, so there, I think that opinion is clear. Okay, let's see this. We're in the 9th parak, right, Yaakov?
Yeah.
So I paused here because we start mentioning Hashamos and we're like, but what are the Hashamos? So it's good to see it inside. So mitzvah say lasos kol Hashamos mitzvah than Rabba Torah. It's a mitzvah of the Torah to perform all these Hashamot exactly as described by the Torah. The Chetzon Masi Hashamot. How is it done? Bein Hasham Vadai, Bein Hasham Talui. Whether it's a certain Hasham, remember the 5, or an Hasham Talui, which is for many sins in the Torah, but the person doesn't even know if he's shogeg or not. It's lo hodalo. So shochato, he slaughters it. V'zorei kadam. Obviously, it's not him who throws the blood. It has to be a kohen. Kamosha be'arnu. Where did we say this earlier? It was in the 5th parak. And umafshit, and then they skin the animal. Umotziah meirin, they take out the entrails. Umolachan, they salt them. V'zorkan al gabe ha'yishim. So they're thrown onto the fire, and like we saw before, literally thrown. It's not that Kohen walks over and places it down nicely. He actually has to give a throw with his right hand. Well, yeah. If he wants to take the entrails, by the way, it's one thing to take let's say the hind leg of a ram. You could hold that and throw it. Entrails are kishkas, you know, it's intestines and things like that. Yeah. That's kind of hard to throw, so that you can put in the kli. Okay, so in order to bring that to the altar, we saw that the Kohen holds then they sacrifice the bull. So there's a Kohen who holds the head a certain way. Those are in his hands. He holds the breast, okay, the side of that has the ribs, right? So he holds that in his hands. The guy who's carrying the entrails has it in a ceremonial bowl. Okay, it makes more sense that way. The rest of the meat is eaten by Zichrei Kahuna in the temple courtyard, just like the chatas. Why do you mention Zichrei Kahuna? La'afuke, the Kohen's wife or the Kohen's daughter. Why? Because they are called, we're going to see this soon, grammatically speaking, the Kohen's wife and the Kohen's daughter have the title of what? Koheneth, which is just Kohen but feminine. And they can eat that which the Kohen eats sometimes. Sometimes they do share in priestly portions. Yeah. So you have to mention Zichrei Kahuna because you would have had a Havamina. For example, who else eats the sacrifices who are not fully Kohanim? The guys with the mum. The Kohanim with the mums, so they don't do any of the sacrificial service, but they get to eat some. And they're also I'm trying to say they're Zichrei Kahuna, so they're included. Yeah. But they're not included in the service. So you have to be very specific here. Asham Mitzorah, Yesh B'Kabbalah Damo Shinui. The way the blood of the Asham Mitzorah is received by the Kohen is different. Okay? Why? Because they save some. Yes, the blood is caught in the kli in order to apply it to the altar, but there's also some that the Kohen has to catch the cup in order to apply to the Mitzorah. Right? There's Bohen Yadoy Minith, Bohen Ragloy Minith, right? It's applied to the actual, the Mitzorah, the former Mitzorah. He's still technically a Mitzorah. He's not a Mitzorah because he's already in the temple, so he's partially purified. He's now Mechusar Kapara. In order to be able to eat of sacrificial meat, to participate in Korban Pesach, he has to, for example, go through this this ritual. And it says here in Mechusarei Kapara, that's another section of the halachot we're going to see. So this blood is caught in a different way. This Asham Mitzorah, even though the blood is caught differently, the rest of how it's processed, the way the blood is put on the altar and how the Kohanim eat it, that's just like all the other Ashamot, which is just like all the other Chataot. Yes?
Maybe I was spacing up for a moment. Was Asham Mitzorah mentioned later
in Korbanos? Yes. There are five. What are the Asham? There's Asham Talui for all the sins that a person would be chayav. Right. What do you call it? Chayav chatas. Okay. Now you have to make brachas, and you have to think about her when you make the brachas. That's how it works. The five ashamos, quick. Let's test ourselves. Shifcha harufa, meila, gazela, or gazel, and there's asham mitzorah, and we just said it. I said we said the nazir, nazir and mitzorah, and meila, gazela, and shifcha harufa. Okay. So this will be on the final exam, by the way. So remember it. And may you never come to have to, may you never end up having to do any of this stuff. Just keep yourself clean. Asiyat kol shlamim k'mitzvatan. That's enough for the Ashamot already. In the Rambam, now he gets the shlamim. Shlamims are fun. Why shlamim is, for lack of a better example, you sent me, it's a shelem. Yeah, it's a plural shelem, but what does it mean? Peace offerings, for lack of a better word, because I'll say, make shalom for everybody. Everybody gets a piece. So until we hear otherwise, we're going to translate it as peace offering. And what? Or what do you call it? Wholeness offering. Yeah. So mitzvah saying, performing the shlamim properly is also a commandment of the Torah. V'hein arba aminin. They are four types. Ha'echad shel tzibur. There's the one of the tzibur. V'ashlusha shel miyachiv. And three of individuals, private people. Ketzad ma'aseh shalmi tzibur. When do you have a shalmi tzibur? Shavuos. Shochev v'zorek adam k'mo shebe'arnu. He slaughters the animal, throws the blood, as we explained, umafshit and skins it, motzia mirin, takes out the entrails, molachan, salts them, maktiran, and burns them on the altar instead of zorek al ishim. V'ashar nechal zikrei kuna bizrak chata v'chasham. This shalmi tzibur is eaten by male kohanim in the azara, just like chatas and asham. These Shalmi Tzibur are unlike the rest of the Shlamim. They're not Kodshe Kalim, they're Kodshe Kachim. So they can't be taken out of the Azara, and they have to be eaten by Kohanim specifically, not Levim, not Yisraelim. But then there's the Shalmi Yachid. Three types of Shalmi Yachid. What are they? I have this over here. Anybody here ever do a shlamim? That's bamba. Yeah, okay. That's bamba. That's considered a food here in this country for some reason. Never eat the stuff. It's basically cheese doodles, but with a different flavor on it. Why not cheese doodles? Why peanut instead? Because cheese doodles are milky. If you'd make them properly, it means half the time you couldn't eat them. They wouldn't be a popular Haredi snack. All the popular snacks in this country, among, let's say, the frum community, are all parv. Right? So you have to stick to it. So they put peanut butter on it. And yeah, apparently it's like they trick people thinking it's a health food because they put vitamins into it. Okay. What are the shalmi yachid? The three types. The first is hu abba shlamim below lechem. It's shlamim, no bread. Kamo shalmi chagiga v'simcha. V'zeo nikra shlamim. Stam shlamim, or as I put it, a person says harei alai shlamim. I have to bring shlamim, or he's bringing a peace offering because it's chagiga or something like that. It's yontiv. There's no requirement to bring with it extra bread. Okay, he just brings the animal, the bull or the lamb as it is. Vasheni shlamim abayim alechem. This is the shlamim that has a special offering of bread, and that's brought beneder and nedava. A person can bring this; he could take this upon himself also. Zeo nikra toda. The shlamim, a person also has to bring a load of bread with it. That's called the korban toda. Loto alechem nikra lechem toda. And the special bread, which we're going to read about this, large quantities of bread. By the way, what are they going to end up doing with that bread? Kohanim are going to eat some. They're going to eat the bread. Basically, it's a meal. When a person brings a korban toda, who gets to eat most of that meat? The invitees, the friends of the person who's celebrating. So it makes sense. There's going to be a lot of bread on the table for people to make themselves sandwiches. That's how it works. Aminash dishi. The third type of shlamim that a yachid brings, not the tzibur, which is also kachim kalim, is shlamim shemakriva nazir b'yom milot. The day the nazir finally finishes his term as a nazir, so he has to bring a chatas and a shlamim and an ola, right? Guys are familiar with that? Nazir brings chatas. We said what? There's esoterically some say, what was his sin? Right? Is he
purification? Oh
yeah, so I said purification, but so why does he have to purify himself? The answer, because he's now downgrading. Normally Malmik Kedusha. So how does he downgrade his Kedusha? By the Chatos. It takes it out of him. And he brings a burnt offering and he brings a shlamim. Ve'im ba'im im lechem, and that's called the El Nazir. Okay? The shlamim part, the part that's actually eaten by them, not the burnt offering and not the Chatos, the shlamim that the Nazir brings is specifically a ram. So that's called the Nazir's ram. Okay? And it has a ritual with the cooking the ram meat, giving some to the Kohen, burning the hair, right? Yeah. I had this here over a question. Chagiga. What are Shalmei Chagiga and Shalmei Simcha? What's the nafkamina between Shalmei Chagiga and Simcha? They're both brought on the Chagim. So what's the difference? The difference is Chagiga is for men. Men have a mitzvah to go to Aliyah Regel. They actually have to show up in the courtyard of the temple and bring a burnt offering and a shlamim. Burnt offering for God and shlamim for themselves to eat. Now, we're going to see that, technically speaking, wait, that's a big expense. Let's say you have to bring a burnt offering and a shlamim, 2 animals every time there's yontif. You have to show up at the temple. 3 times a year, you're going to splurge on this. That's actually an expense. The Torah doesn't require that. The Torah says you could chip in with others. Okay, if you have multiple men bring these sacrifices in conjunction, so whatever, as long as it's enough for everybody. But the Shalmei Simcha is that there be more meat to eat, not just because he's showing up in the temple. And this is for his wife also. The woman, when she comes with her husband up to Jerusalem for pilgrimage, does not have to go to the temple, except if it's Hakhel. She does not have to attend temple. By the way, it didn't prevent lots of women from going to the temple anyways, but they're not obligated. However, they still are obligated to celebrate. And in temple times, if you're in Jerusalem, the celebration is for everybody eating of meat. So the woman is obligated in the simcha. So they would technically speak, if a woman is without her husband or has no husband for whatever reason. So when she goes up to Jerusalem for the pilgrimage, she doesn't have to show up in the temple courtyard and bring Shalmei Chagiga or Olas Re'iyah, but she would have to somehow get her hands on Shalmei Simcha so that she could have Yontif meal. By the way, when I say Yontif meal, like the Rambam, throughout Chol Moed, the Rambam equates the celebration of the day of Yontif also with Chol Moed. Just like on Yontif, you're supposed to have celebratory meals, on Chol Moed also it's a mitzvah. Outside of the temple, there's still simcha, and for men it is eating meat, but not sacrificial meat, and drinking wine. They throw in meat and wine for men, but for women, it's no longer eating meat and wine. It's new clothing, right? And for kids, it's bamba, I guess. Should be nuts, but now we eat unhealthy food. Okay, so yeah. Nafkamino. So how does a woman supposed to celebrate this coming Sukkot, God willing? Yibana Mikdash. If they're not in Jerusalem, so for the man, the simcha is meat and wine, and for the woman, it's clothing, like we just said. But if they get to Jerusalem, for both of them, the simcha would be eating the meat of the korbanos, and I guess you could throw in wine, but that's not the simcha. There's no simcha of drinking wine in front of God, right? And suddenly the men and women are equal in that regard. So how do you do these three shlomim? Once again, slaughters the animal and throws the blood, just like we said. Umafshit, skins the animal. Motzia marine, takes out the entrails. Basar, and then he chops up the meat. Different ways of doing it. He takes the breast and the right foreleg. Okay. The shok in this case is there's a diagram there. You see which is rope. Yeah, it's the back one. Okay. Zroa is the front leg. Okay. The Kohen takes these entrails and the breast and this shok, the thigh, he puts it on the owner's hands, right? And the Kohen meniach yado tachat yedei baalim. The Kohen puts his hands underneath the owner's hands. Baalim is always a plural, right? Just like adonim, and it's various construct states. It's always a plural, right? So the Kohen helps the fellow hold this. And they wave it all in front of God. That means in the temple, on the east side of the altar. I think Rashi says it could be anywhere, even the west side. But the point is the Kohen helps this fellow do this act of waving, right? You're going to see later. Wait a minute. If it's a woman bringing the shlomim, did they do this also? Would the Kohen put his hands into the woman's hands? And the answer is no. Generally speaking, no, because a woman doesn't do tenufa. Okay? That's how you get over the Nagia problem, unless it's you have a woman who was a Nazir or a woman who was a Sota, in which case they're already exposing her, right?
It is very cautious to ask on.
Well,
It's very cautious.
yes, there's a lot. I'm just saying, but this is something in the temple that didn't happen. Okay, you didn't have what the Sota. I said Sota. It's even worse. The Kohen parat Rusha and also rips off part of her clothing. Yeah, so that the Torah commanded such a thing. So also the Kohen helps her do her tenufa already. So there's Nagia happening there with that. Okay. So what is it here? Anytime you have this tenufa waving the pieces of the korban in front of God, it has to be done on the east side. So, like I said, the Rambam doesn't, the Rashi doesn't require that. Okay, molichu mevi means go like this. Maleh umorid is like that. So people say that's how you're supposed to do your lulav, right? So you lulav, right? Like that. That's supposed to be lulav. Now people shake. Let's say you're supposed to shake. Where does the shaking come from? Well, it says na'anuim. Na'anuim is shaking. They say the na'anuim is molichu mevi, like a tnufa. But if it was, it would be called hanafa then. So maybe you're supposed to do both. I don't know. Look into it. It's just the language seems to imply that there's shaking supposed to be going on also, right? What do you see most people do? What do the Admorim do? There's a shake, okay? Not just the Molich and Mevi or the Mala and Morid. There's a shake, okay? So there's reason for that, okay? In the base of Mikdash, they didn't do any shaking though. All these cases it's nufa means like that. And last halacha, v'imhaya HaKorban Todah. If this shlamim is a Thanksgiving offering, lokeach min alechem haba ima echad me'asara. The Kohen takes of all these loaves of bread 1 out of 10. It's quite a lot of loaves, different types of bread there. Umanicho im hachazev ashok v'amarim. He puts it on top of the breast and the shok and the entrails. Uminifa kol idei abalim k'moshe be'arnu. And he waves all of them with the owners, just as we explained before. And the way they do it is, how do you do this? First, the chalavim in their bowl, that's the entrails, another word for it, the fats, onto the owner's hands, and then the chazeh and the shoker on top, and the shtei kleot, those are the two kidneys, v'yoter kaved l'mala mihem. Those are different entrails. So the chaylev part of the entrails is on the bottom, and the two kidneys and the yoter dal kaved, that extra, just like its whole sheath of fat, that's above the diaphragm and the liver, right? That's the yoter dal kaved. We saw pictures of it, and he puts it on top. V'im yesh sham lechem, if there's bread, maniach alechem l'mala, and he stacks the bread on top of that. Umenif hakol. Now this is kind of heavy, by the way. There's quite a lot of waving, and you can see why the Kohen's helping him also. They don't want to drop any of it, and that's what they do. So we're going to stop here. We'll have a prayer that we get to actually see the performance of these commandments speedily in our days. See you next time. You will.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.